All right, so these last few sections now we're going to focus on specific quadrilaterals. So all of these shapes now are going to have four sides to them. Today we're going to talk about parallelograms. So a parallelogram is a quadrilateral with both pairs of opposite sides parallel. To name a parallelogram, you're going to see this symbol used. Okay, so for example, I could say parallelogram ABCD so that you don't have to write out the word parallelogram. So in the parallelogram that's on the right-hand side, AB is parallel to CD. They have the same markings on them, and those little arrows mean parallel. And BC is parallel to AD. Same idea. Same markings, which means parallel. So what are some important properties of a parallelogram? Well, if a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, then its opposite sides are congruent. So we're going to use that diagram above just to dissect it even further. Well, if the opposite sides are congruent, then I know that AB is congruent to CD. And I also know that BC is congruent to AD. So those are my opposite sides. If a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, then the opposite angles are also congruent to each other. So I know that angle A is congruent to angle C. And I know that angle B, is congruent to angle D. If a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, then it's consecutive. So consecutive means next to. Consecutive angles are supplementary, which means they add up to 180 degrees. So I have two angles that are next to each other that add up to 180. So there's a couple of these. So angle A plus angle B is equal to 180. Angle B plus angle C is equal to 180. Angle C plus angle D is equal to 180. And angle A plus angle D is equal to 180. So all four of those pairs, depending on which one you would use, that would help you identify that. And it says if a parallelogram has one right angle, then it has four right angles. Okay? All right, so it says given parallelogram ABCD. So I'm going to draw it because it's not given to me. So A, B, C, and D. A is 55, AB is 2.5, and BC is 1. And we want to find all the missing information. So let's see. If it's a parallelogram, I know opposite sides are the same. So I know this equals this, and I know this equals this. So does that get me any answer here? So DC, yes. So I know that's 2.5. And B and C, no, those are angles. All right, well, what do I know about angles? Well, I know that opposite angles are congruent, which means if A is 55, then C is 55. And I know that consecutive angles are supplementary to each other. So I know that angle A plus angle B is equal to 180 degrees. Well, A is 55, B I don't know, and I can set it equal to 180, which means that angle B is going to come out to 125. Now, if you draw the triangle, or sorry, not the triangle, if you draw the parallelogram and fill everything in first, then it's just a matter of pulling the information off of the diagram in terms of what's being asked. So it's definitely important, number one, label, and number two, definitely add stuff and pull the information after you find it all out on the diagram in terms of the questions that are being asked of you. All right, two more properties. So it says if a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, then the diagonals bisect each other. So they cut each other in half. And then if a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, then each diagonal separates the parallelogram into two congruent triangles. I'll say we use the first 7 the most often. Opposite sides being congruent, opposite angles being congruent, and consecutive being supplementary are like the most important. Or not the most important, but they're the most used. Now, the diagonals bisecting each other, that's another one. So let's see. So it says QRST is a parallelogram. Find the value of each variable. So first things first, we know opposite sides are congruent. So according to that, I see that 5x is equal to 27, which means x is equal to 5.4. So there's one variable. The other bit of information, I know the diagonals bisect each other. So here are my two diagonals. They cut each other in half. So they cut each other in half, which means this one is congruent to this one, and this one is congruent to this one, and that's where the y one is going to come from. So I know that 2y minus 5 is equal to y plus 4, which means y is equal to 9. Now the third part, for z, I have to use the fact that I know that opposite sides are parallel to each other. So there's my sides. I know they're parallel. I know that QS is a transversal, so this brings us back to a previous concept that we had gone over a few chapters back. And I know that I have alternate interior angles. So this angle right here is congruent to this angle right here. So 33 is equal to 3z. This should be a z. That means z is equal to 11. Okay, you're going to be dealing with parallel lines transversals again. So maybe do a quick recap in terms of the angle pairings that we had used for that. All right, 2 more on the bottom here. So we have a parallelogram. Let's find the missing stuff. So step 1, opposite sides are congruent. So set those 2 guys equal. 4y equals 8, so y is 2. In terms of x, we know consecutive angles are supplementary. So 4x plus 2x minus 6 equals 180. So 6x equals 186, which means x is equal to 31 for that. All right, last one. We know the diagonals bisect